Started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we've gone through successfully part 1 and part 2 of our leg. Now, as you can see on mine, one of the things that I wanted you to keep in mind was we don't need to blend everything in on this. We're working on anatomy, we're working on the basic parts. It's one of the things that, you know, when we sculpt the full body, we don't necessarily have to painstakingly put together every last muscle group. But I think it's important when we're trying to do this to learn that there are parts to the human body and how to put them in. So when we do sculpt the full figure, we have a better understanding of where things should be thick, where they should be thin, where things should pop out, and where things should recede. So with the first 2 videos, what we have over here is we've got a finished lower leg right now. We've got the calves back here. We've got on one side, we've got our groin muscle, and we have that sort of teardrop effect that happens on the thigh. We've got one long muscle along the front of the quad. We've got another long muscle / tendon that really goes all the way down from the shin and goes all the way up the outside part of the leg. So we've got the inside part of the leg, which you can see in mine is a little bumpier, and we have the outside part of the leg, which is a little bit smoother. All right, I've put my kneecap on, and now we're down to the last bit of this demo. Well, first things first, I'm going to try to start with our sort of end of the leg, this sort of back of the leg, and the hamstrings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one ball of clay over here. The hamstrings generally should be divided up into 2 pieces, but we're going to kind of keep it just a little simpler than that. I'm going to start sort of pressing this out into a sort of thick, sort of sausage shape. I can even roll that out a little bit. And again, I'm trying to roll this thing out to be a little bit shorter than the entire length of the upper part of the leg. Now, I'm just going to roll that out just a little bit more. And then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of flatten it just a little bit. We don't want it completely flat. We don't want to make it too thin, but we don't want it to be just a one big circular sausage-like shape. All right, so you can see from this side the thickness of my piece. And again, the overall length of it is pretty much a little bit shorter than from the knee to the end of our upper part of the leg. I'm going to go ahead now and start pinching the ends of this just to make the ends a little thinner. And just like all of the muscles that we've created so far, you know, the thin ends are really like where those tendons and ligaments come in. And those tendons and ligaments are what attaches those muscle bellies to our skeletal system. And now if I'm looking at the front of the leg, and you know the front with the kneecap, I'm going to flip over to the back side. Back side, I can see my calves, and really I haven't added anything else to the back part of the leg right now. So that's where this is going to come in. So I'm going to try to fit this in, these hamstrings. I'm going to fit them in so that the very bottom of it really just kind of attaches right there at the back of the knee. And I can sort of press that in a little bit. I want that thick, meaty part of the piece of clay that I rolled out to be part of the back over here. And I can kind of press it in a little bit. I don't need to blend it in, but I'm going to press it in a little bit. And then as I get towards the top of this, I've got that last little piece that's sort of been flattened, and I'm just going to kind of mush all that together. So the important part again is to attach the bottom part of that muscle to the back of the knee. Kind of press the rest of that in without sort of squeezing it too much. You can see what my leg looks like now. I was a little front heavy before on the quads. Now I have myself some hamstrings, which are good. And those will go all the way up. Essentially, the hamstrings kind of tuck in underneath where ultimately the butt would be. We're going to keep the butt as part of the next thing that we demo, which is going to be the chest and torso. So right now we're going to keep this as the leg. We've got now the front done, the sides, all this other stuff. We've got the back. You can see that I've blended in the top and the bottom of the hamstrings, but I kind of left it still sort of unblended there so you can see all the definition. At this point, you're getting a lot of little strands of muscles, but that's really kind of like what our anatomy chart looks like. Now that I have that done, I've got a couple balls of clay left over here, and that's going to be for my foot and my ankle. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of those balls of clay, I'm going to divide it in two. I'm going to split it up just like we've been splitting it up, trying to keep those pieces relatively even. I'll roll them up again so I have two smaller pieces. We're going to put one of those pieces aside. We're going to save that for the ankle. And then that other small ball that I've made, I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that in and make it part of a full-size piece of ball. So this one right here is what I'm remaking, is a piece of clay that is like 1.5 balls big. So we're using the dime as our reference point. So I've kind of taken one piece of dime-sized clay, I've taken half of another, and I've combined it together to make one larger piece. This is going to be for the foot, and we don't want to make the foot too tiny, and that's why I've added that extra piece. Right now I'm going to start kind of flattening out that piece, and I'm going to keep it relatively rectangular. Like, it's not going to be a perfect rectangle, but I kind of want to lengthen that piece. I don't want to make it too thin, but what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to kind of pick one side, it doesn't matter left or right, whichever way you're holding it, and make it a little bit thinner. So if you take a look at this piece that I'm working on, I'm sort of making it into a wedge, just like a foot is. We're going to let there be more material in the back, and we're going to use a little less material in the front. And we don't want to make this like a duck's foot. We want to kind of make it a little skinnier and longer. Now, how long should the foot be? Well, you know what? If we look at it with the leg over here, I would tell you like this. If you line it up with like your knee, we want this thing to be, you know, not as long as this, but we also don't want it less than half of this. We want to see how mine right now, if I go from like the knee and look at this piece, it's like 3/4 of the size. If you make the foot smaller than that, it really starts to look a little weird. It doesn't really kind of fit. And you can always kind of roughly see how the leg looks with the foot. And I'm going to kind of put my whole thing together right now so you can see. So when you see the entire thing, that's where I'm looking at. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sort of round off the back of this. This is going to be the heel of my foot. You can see what it looks like from the side. You can see like what it looks like from the top, from the back. One side's a little thicker, the other side's a little thinner. Then we're going to go ahead and take our little toothpick. We can do this now, we can do this later, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one side. It doesn't matter what side I want to start with, and I'm just going to kind of lightly engrave. I'm not going to press all the way through and cut through, but I'm going to indicate a toe, the big toe. And that one, again, you know, there is no right or wrong size there, but we want to kind of keep that separation big. Now with the rest of the space that I have over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first try to divide that space in half. So I have 3 big toes. Then I'm going to take those individual smaller parts and divide those in half. And again, I am not trying to cut these toes out. All I'm trying to do is create a little bit of a line, an indication that I have a few different ones. And that's all I'm going to need for the foot. We can always touch that up later. And now what I want to do is I want to take my leg, kneecap in the front. I'm going to leave just a little bit of sticking out of there on the bottom. And then really I just want to kind of jab that into the foot. Alright, so I've got that attached. I'm going to see mine. What I want to do right now is I want to carefully sort of pinch top of that foot into the ankle a little bit. Alright, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start messing around with that extra little piece of clay, that small half a dime piece. And what I'm going to do with that one is I'm going to take that one and divide that one in half. Remember, this is already half size piece. I'm going to make those into little ball. Okay. And these are going to be part of what the ankle is going to be. So I'm going to take each one of them. I'm going to kind of just flatten them out a little bit. I'm going to take a look. And that looks a little bit too big. I'm actually going to make it much smaller than that. I'm going to take even half of a piece and make it a little bit smaller. And go ahead and round that off into a little ball. So I'm working with a really tiny piece of clay. I'm going to press that down into my surface a little bit, flatten it out. Like a nice little flat oval. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of attach it so half of it is on the lower part of the leg and the other half is sort of sweeping into the foot. And I'm going to go ahead and blend that in. And you can see that little bit of, leaving a little bit of a bump that sticks out there. And I'm sort of blending all that stuff into the foot. Try to make it one piece. Take another little tiny piece of clay. Again, just a little small piece. It's actually half of a half of a half. Really not much. Make that little ball of clay, flatten it out just a little bit. Make it into a little sort of jelly bean kind of shape. And we'll do the same thing on the opposite side where the foot and the leg connect. Just going to kind of place that little piece right in there. And then I'm going to just smush it into the foot and the lower part of the leg, leaving just a little bit of a bump to stick out. So when I look at it from here, you can see right by where the foot connects to the leg, it's gotten a little bit thicker. Show you what the lower part of the leg looks like. And reshape my foot a little bit. And go ahead and take those tendons that were part of the calves and sort of make sure they sweep right into the foot in what the Achilles tendon would look like. Nice and thin back there. I can continue to blend this part of the ankle into the foot. I'm going to keep the heel round. Look at it from the front and kind of carefully try to blend a little bit of that into one another. Now it looks like one piece. You can see my foot from a couple different angles. Alright. And there we kind of have it. We'll take a look at from the side, from the front, from the outside, and from the back. We have finished the leg. I'm going to go ahead and take a couple pictures of this and post them, and that will be what our completed leg looks like. You can always go back in and touch up some of these things as they go, but again, it's okay for all those muscle bellies to look like they're separate pieces. Really, the places that you want to blend this stuff together is where the tendon part or the ends of muscle bellies attached to the leg. Those are the areas to kind of smooth in. The rest of them you can kind of leave what you want to consider as that definition of the leg. And there it is. And there it is.